So about 4 years and 200 events later, how do the DXR8s look? They look outstanding. The build quality on these boxes is fantastic. It is ABS plastic like you'd find on a K12, but they are built extremely well. They look great. All right, let's talk numbers. The DXR8 was a big competitor to the legacy K8, and it was actually $100 less. These retailed for $549, whereas the legacy K8s were $649. Yamaha boasted 1100 watts peak, 700 watts continuous, and a 7-year warranty. QSC, of course, 6-year warranty with registration. The speakers themselves have a 57 to 20,000 hertz frequency range and 129 dB max SPL. It's a fan-cooled system, and at least half the events I ran these at were outdoors in sunlight for wedding ceremonies in Southern California in the summertime, anywhere between 85 and 100 degrees. Never a single issue, even if they were set up for hours at a time. Powering on the DXR, of course, is simple. Push the power switch, and in only a matter of seconds, usually about 4 seconds or so, it kicks on and it's ready to go. You're not hit with a lot of options back here. You can see your inputs. You have input 1, 2, and 3. Your mic and line, which you can change with this adjustable switch there. Line input, and then RCA inputs. Most new speakers have now gone to just the 1/8" input jack. Your DSP was pretty basic. You can either leave it off. These do not have a wedge to be used as a monitor, but you could wedge them yourself if you wanted to use them as a monitor, and I mostly ran them as front of house main. High pass filter is either off, or again, if I was doing speech, I would usually just have it at 100, or in other scenarios when we were at nightclubs or bars and these were used kind of as a back room, always had the high pass on 100, using them with an external sub.
In all seriousness, we celebrate with you today, with your families, your friends. I want you to just take a little peek out there, see all of your friends that are out there.
I wanted to just thank you for being such a good friend and a loyal friend and being there for me in many times when
we promise to be ever accepting of one another while treasuring each other's individuality to comfort and support each other through life's disappointments and sorrows, to revel and share in each other's joys and accomplishments, to share our hopes and dreams, to strive for an intimacy that will allow us to accomplish this and permit us to become the persons we are yet to be.
So up until this point, the DXR8 is basically not have any faults against it. They are outstandingly loud, very clear, 90-degree dispersion. Oftentimes I would just use one of them, as we already previously saw, for wedding ceremonies covering up to 200 people for just speech. They were incredibly loud, incredibly clear. There's just a couple of little problems that I had with them over the years I didn't like. One of them is the non-locking connector for your XLR. 200 events, maybe twice, that actually had almost fallen out before. It was close, I caught it. I don't like that. That drove me a little bit nuts. Most newer speakers have the locking connectors on them. The Legacy K series originally did not have locks on them, and then eventually they did have locking inputs. And the new K.2 series, of course, does have locks on it. So does QSC's CP series, which is actually really impressive. The other thing I didn't like, and it wasn't too big of a deal, but there was a couple of times where your protection would kick in. Now, why would I be upset about the protection kicking in? I understand that sometimes if we were not careful, we would run them kind of hot. The thing that wasn't good is if the protection kicked in, there was times when it would just completely freeze and mute the speaker completely until you'd restart the system. Not a great look in a nightclub or at a wedding ceremony when that happens. Now, that only happened one time in 4 years of wedding ceremonies, and I believe only one time, maybe twice, in nightclub or bar scenarios. But it was a little bit alarming when it did happen because we didn't remember really running the signal that hot. Obviously we were, but it was definitely something where I was a little alarmed when it did happen. I completely understand the limiter kicking in and wanting to protect your speaker, the amplifier, all of it. I get it. but it just caught us off guard a couple of times when it would kick in and the whole thing would freeze, especially if you're just using one speaker. Make sure you're careful about your limits with these things. You don't want that to happen at an event. I never ran it much past Unity, and again, 4 years of events, this only happened 1 or 2 times, but it was alarming when it did happen, so just watch out for it. Another great thing I liked about the DXR8s was this awesome protective case. And I will tell you that this case is very much, I don't want to call it waterproof because you're not going to throw it into a pool, but it definitely resisted rain. We used a DXR8 one time in the rain for almost 4 or 5 consecutive hours with this case on. No problems at all, no issue. Speaker ran perfectly fine the whole evening. The case is awesome. You put your power cord in here, and the protection against the elements was great. All right, just to give you a size comparison, here's a DXR8 next to a QSC K12.2, mounted on a 12-inch subwoofer, mounted on an 18-inch subwoofer. That's an EKX 18 SP by Eevee down there. So to recap, the Yamahas are really great speakers. So just as a basic recap, the Yamaha DXR8s are really great speakers. They're very clear, very loud, put out tons of sound, especially for their size. And if you're using them as a wedding ceremony speaker, especially for spoken word, good clarity, tons of headroom. Just remember, don't push them too hard for too long, or they might freeze up on you. And nobody wants that. If you can get a pair used, they're awesome value. They hold up very well. Yamaha offered a 7-year warranty for a reason. They're built like a tank. Overall, good stuff. I'm not regretting my decision. Check out these videos over here and click here to subscribe for more content.